Welcome back to the Parry Presents the Kings of the Heavyweights or the Heavyweight Kings, however you want to put it. And tonight we will be discussing one of the most accomplished heavyweight champions in the last 30 years. One of those heavyweight champions where you look at his actual accomplishments, when you look at the fighters that he beat, the reign that he had, a fighter who defeated every opponent he ever faced, avenging the only two losses he ever had on his record. He avenged both of them in the ring. That's right. I'm talking about the Canadian, the 1988 Canadian gold Olympian with the Jamaican roots by way of London, England. We're talking about one of the absolute greatest heavyweights that ever walked the earth, Lennox Lewis. But before we get into Lennox and talk about his illustrious career, I must remind y'all, jab that like button, hook off on that subscribe, and uppercut that share if you would, please. Let's get into this.
I know you won't swing, but this is the Parry.
This is the Parry.
Hook it and uppercut is getting scary.
It's getting scary.
Treasure the truth or risk getting buried.
Risk getting
I'm
killed.
on a mission, you hear me? Yeah, this is the Parry.
This is
They
the
got
Parry.
the green light if we say go.
Go.
Young Tyson, wake him up with the BK flow.
You know.
Loading up late rounds, this is TKO.
Lewis first struck gold in the 88 World Olympics against the highly favored American Riddick Bowe. After landing a hard right hand against Bowe, the referee then intervened, Bowe letting it be known he was fine and okay. But after receiving a standing 8 from the ref decided to call it off, giving the British-born, Canadian-raised, Jamaican-descended Lennox Lewis the gold medal. A year later, he would turn pro against Al Malcolm, dispatching his opponent within 2 rounds. He then moved up in the ranks, knocking out the likes of Michael Weaver, with his first true test coming against Tyrell Biggs, which he beat Biggs senseless for 3 rounds, dropping him 3 times in the 3rd round before the ref finally, showing some compassion, saved him. He would amass a record of 22-0 with 19 wins coming by way of knockout before facing the powerful, hard-hitting Razor Ruddock. The bout was a WBC eliminator, making the winner the mandatory challenger for the WBC title held by Riddick Bowe at the time. In a fight most expected Ruddock to win, Lewis was dominant as he pounded on Lewis, dropping him with a hard right hand. And then again in the second before the referee finally called a halt, ending the 2-round destruction of Razor Ruddock, making Lennox Lewis the #1 contender to the WBC heavyweight title. But Riddick Bowe refused to face his mandatory and relinquished the title in the trash can. Subsequently, Lewis was awarded the WBC title without having won it in the ring. His first defense came against Tony Tucker, fighting Tucker to a 12-round unanimous decision. In the Battle of the Brits, he took on national hero Frank Bruno. Although Lewis had won a title, he didn't have the same popularity or admiration that the fans of Britain gave Bruno. And for 6.5 rounds, Frank Bruno completely dominated Lewis until a devastating left hook turned the fight around in the 7th, leaving Bruno frozen against the rope out on his feet, referee stopping the fight in the 7th round. He would then have his fateful evening with former Mike Tyson sparring partner Oliver McCall, who knocked him out in the 2nd round with a punch he nor Oliver McCall seen thrown nor coming. And although he beat the count, he was on wobbly legs. The referee decided to stop the fight, even though a lot of people do think he should have let him continue. After the loss, he would seek help from expert trainer Manny Stewart. His first fight under Stewart's tutelage resulted in a 5-round stoppage of Lionel Butler. Later on that year, he would then go on to meet former Rocky V star Tommy Morrison, who he would completely dominate and outclass, dropping him 3 times for a 6-round stoppage. And in May of '96, he would have what many to date believe was his toughest challenge, facing tough man Ray Mercer. This fight was a hard-fought bout which could have went either way. Most observers believe that Mercer got the best of Lewis, but after 10 brutal and hard-fought rounds, it would be Lewis who would be awarded victory via split decision. The fight was a WBC eliminator for a shot at the then WBC champion Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson would relinquish his title, opting to fight Holyfield instead, which then set up the rematch with Oliver McCall for the vacant WBC title. One of the major differences in this fight would be trainer Manny Stewart, who in the first fight worked the corner for Oliver McCall. This time, he would be with Lennox Lewis. McCall came out to the fight looking extremely anxious. The first 3 rounds were fairly pedestrian. Oliver McCall stalking Lewis, Lewis keeping him at bay with his jab. But after the end of the 3rd round, in a bizarre turn of events, Oliver McCall refused to go to his corner and walked around the ring aimlessly. In the 4th round, Oliver McCall was unwilling to fight. Mitch Lane had asked him if he wished to continue, and a very shaken up Oliver McCall reluctantly said yes. But he continued to refuse to engage Lewis, and after the end of the 4th round was visibly in tears. Referee Mills Lane once again checked on Oliver McCall to see if he wished to continue. McCall again reluctantly agreed, but after returning for the 5th round, McCall seemed to be having a full-blown nervous breakdown, and referee Mills Lane, seeing enough, called a halt to the action, making Lennox Lewis the WBC champion for the 2nd time without beating a champion for the title. In a fight most experts consider to pick'em, he went up against Andrew Galata, completely pulverizing Galata, ending the fight with a 1st-round assault. Next on his list was top-ranked contender and linear champ Shannon Briggs. Shannon rocked him in the 1st round with a left hook that wobbled Lewis, sensing he had him ready to go. Briggs teed off with a barrage of punches. Lewis survived, and Briggs seemingly shot his load. After landing some solid punches, Lewis returned the favor, putting him on the seat of his trunks, and twice more in the 5th, resulting in a 5th-round stoppage, TKO. And a year later, the stage would be set for one of the most anticipated heavyweight showdowns of all time. Lennox Lewis will put his WBC title on the line against WBA and IBF title holder Evander Holyfield in Madison Square Garden. It was Evander Holyfield who many considered the true champion of the heavyweight division. The winner of this fight would be crowned the first undisputed heavyweight champion since Riddick Bowe threw the WBC belt in the trash. Holyfield, who had predicted a 3rd-round knockout, seemed to be preserving his energy as Lewis jabbed away, keeping his distance for the first 2 rounds. But in the 3rd round, Holyfield came alive, pinning Lewis to the corner with hard combinations, looking for the home run, barely missing him with a crazy overhand right. He definitely hurt Lewis a couple of times. However, he was exerting a lot of energy in the process. Lewis able to weather the storm, and when it was over, sent Holyfield back to his corner, completely exhausted with a failed 3rd-round prophecy. For the remainder of the fight, Lewis continued to work Holyfield with the jab, raking him with an occasional right hand, measuring his distance, and keeping Holyfield at the end of his punches. After 12 uneventful rounds with the exception of the 3rd, Lewis seemingly bested Holyfield 9 rounds to 3 on most observers' scorecards. And then came the reading of the judges' scorecards.
115 to 115, even a draw. The decision is even a draw. Both champions retain their belt.
One judge in favor of Holyfield, another judge in favor of Lewis, and the 3rd for a draw. The fight was ruled a majority draw. The rematch would take place 8 months later in March of '99 in Las Vegas, Nevada. The second fight was a lot more competitive, Holyfield making some serious adjustments, doubling up on the jab, feinting his way in with the right hand, really shortening the distance with Lewis. Lennox once again fighting his fight, using his jab. But what Lennox did add to his arsenal in this fight was that uppercut. And in the end, it was probably that uppercut that made the difference in this second fight. And next to his jab, it was his most effective weapon of the night. And although Holyfield's punch output was roughly the same as in the first fight, he was much more effective. Rounds 6 through 9 produced some of the best rounds in heavyweight boxing ever. Holyfield hurt Lewis several times in this fight, creating some intense drama, with both fighters forced to do some serious soul searching. In the first fight, Lewis was able to dance around and work the jab, but this time he will be forced to stand his ground and trade real estate with the WBA and IBF champ. After 12 rounds and a fight almost too close to call, Lennox Lewis would now be crowned undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, making it Lewis's first time becoming a world heavyweight champion by defeating a champion in the ring. In April of 2000, he would then go on to face the #1 contender who many believe to be the heir apparent to the heavyweight championship, 6'7", 250-pound Michael Grant. From the beginning, Grant was on the attack, trying to bring it to the smaller Lewis. But he was dropped early with that same uppercut we seen against Holyfield, followed by an overhand right. Grant, who never regained his footing, was officially knocked down 2 more times, barely surviving the first round. Grant continued to press his attack in the second round, hitting Lennox with a nice right hand before being nearly decapitated by a vicious right uppercut by Lennox Lewis, ending Grant's aspirations of ever becoming a heavyweight champion. After unifying the heavyweight championship of the world and defeating who most felt was the top-rated contender, he then looked to clean up the division, taking on Samoan powerhouse David Tua. Lewis established himself early in the first round, slamming Tua with a hard right hand, making Tua reluctant to rush in. Lewis kept Tua at bay, Tua missing wildly with his trademark left hook, never able to get in close enough to really do any damage. Lewis coasted to an easy 12-round decision. Next up was highly regarded yet heavy underdog Hasim Rahman. Lewis, who seemed out of shape for the fight, was already breathing heavy by the second round. Rahman began to land with his right hand, eventually catching Lewis up against the ropes with his hands down with a devastating right hand, ending the fight, separating Lennox Lewis not only from his senses, but from the heavyweight championship of the world. A rematch clause was signed. However, when Rahman chose to fight another fight in the interim, Lennox took him to court to enforce the clause, which prompted Rahman to make disparaging remarks pertaining to Lewis's sexuality. During a live segment on ESPN, Lewis responded to the remarks by daring Rahman to bring his sister around him, which then resulted in the two having an on-set brawl. During the scuffle, Rahman seemed to get the best of Lewis, causing many to believe he may just have Lewis's number. For the first time in 4 years, Lennox Lewis stepped into the ring as the challenger, with many expecting the new champion to pull off a repeat. But an in-shaped and focused Lewis would prove to be a class ahead of Hasim Rahman, knocking him out in the 4th round with a left hook overhand right combination, making Lewis the 3rd man, only behind Muhammad Ali and Evander Holyfield, to win a portion of the heavyweight title 3 times. And in a fight to cement his legacy, he took on the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world and fan favorite, Iron Mike Tyson. Although Mike, a shell of his former self, came out throwing one punch at a time, was extremely aggressive in the early rounds, winning the round to most observers. But from the 3rd round, Lewis completely dominated Mike until stopping him with a hard right hand in the 8th round. And although Mike was far past his prime, this fight was the stamp needed before Lennox can end his career. However, retirement wasn't just in the plans yet, as he signed on to face top-rate contender Kurt Johnson. But after Johnson was injured training 2 weeks prior to the fight, he was replaced with Vitaly Klitschko, who was also scheduled to fight on the undercard of the bout. Lewis, who was scheduled to fight Klitschko in June, took the fight with a 2-week notice, showing little regard for Klitschko. They battled over the jabs, Klitschko seeming to get the best of it as he increasingly found Lewis easy to hit. In the third round, Lewis landed a sharp right hand that opened up a nasty gash around the eye of Klitschko. Klitschko, determined to restore the family name, continued to land hard shots as he grew more and more confident as the fight continued, but not without taking hard shots, showing off a tough pair of whiskers. After 6 rounds of Gaddy Ward-like action in the heavyweight division, in Klitschko's face cut so deep you could see his frontal lobe, the ring physician wisely called a halt to the bout. Klitschko protested the stoppage, as well as the crowd, who could be heard booing the decision to stop the fight. And although Klitschko lost the fight, he won the event and restored the Klitschko name. Lewis, seemingly confident he would have eventually knocked out Klitschko if the fight hadn't been stopped by cuts, initially agreed to a rematch, would shortly retire after, ending one of the greatest heavyweight runs of all time. A 14-year career that consists of 41 wins, 2 losses, and 1 bogus draw. 14 championship defenses within 3 reigns. A champion who has always rebounded to exact revenge, thus beating every fighter he ever faced. The last official undisputed heavyweight champion. He defeated his biggest rivals, the most dominant champion since Mike Tyson, and the number 8 greatest heavyweight of all time, Lennox Lewis.
Actually, now we're going to show you how to catch the jab. Actually, in boxing, it's called parrying.